You're probably already familiar with the square, the rectangle, etc. up in the top portion of your screen. We'll take a look at a couple of tips and techniques for these, but we're not going to go in depth because your textbook is going to already cover that for us. In a later portion of the movie, we're going to take a look at these tools. If you've worked in Adobe Illustrator, you have seen these before in their Pathfinder tools. The tools like this inside of Photoshop have a much more limited capability, but they're still useful. So we'll see those in just a few minutes. Let's go back to our rectangle tool and take a look at that guy. I have my rectangle tool selected. I'm simply going to just drag one out there. But what happens? How do you get a perfect square? To get a perfect square, simply hold down your Shift key and then draw. The Shift key constrains proportions. You may have held down the Shift key before when you're working with the Transform tool, so it really works the same way. This also works on circles. If you use the Ellipse tool and you hold down the Shift key, it will drag out a perfect circle for you. Now, here's another interesting thing. I'm going to click one time on my canvas. Say you want to draw a perfect square from a center dot. If you hold down your click first, hold down your Alt or the Option key, and then put Shift down. When I drag, you can see now that that square is coming from a center point. It's really that easy. So that was a couple of tips about how to use some extra things your book didn't go over. So now let's look at how to combine some shapes or subtract shapes from each other. Find this little guy up here. This is the Add to Shape Area tool. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go back down to my large square here on the right-hand side of my screen, and I'm simply going to draw. Now, if you look at what's happened over in your Layers panel, you see that I've drawn one path on top of the other path. These two will now function like one unit. I can drag them around. If I click off of that and go back, you haven't lost your path. It's just hidden. So like any other time when you need to get your path back, simply get your white selection tool and then you can click on it and you'll see the outlines. Notice that the outlines are still individual. So if you wanted to manipulate one little point, you could. So that was the first one of those tools. I'm going to click on the rectangle tool again to bring back up those Pathfinder type shapes. And let's take a look at the next button in there, Subtract from Shape Area. Click that. I'm going to go to my first rectangle, click, and nothing will happen. That's actually a good thing to know because I was on the wrong shape. So let me undo that. Good times happen when things go wrong in demonstrations because it shows you what not to do. What I forgot to do was to come back to Shape 1 Layer and click on the vector mask. So now we'll click on Subtract from Shape. I'm going to highlight this guy to make sure that I know which one is going to be happening. And now we're going to do that. There it is. So the moral of the story is always make sure that your vector mask is selected. Taking a look at the third icon, this one is going to show you how to intersect shape areas. So click this I still want to be in shape 1 because I want to activate this particular rectangle. I'm going to again draw out that, and notice how it took away everything that was over here and everything that was over here. So that's what that button does. Now I'm going to create one more new layer because I'm going to put a new rectangle on it, and then we're going to work on this last one. This says exclude overlapping shape areas. So click that. I'm going to draw out my rectangle again. And now you have a hole in the center of those two shapes. So that was a little bit more of an in-depth look at the Pathfinder type tools inside of Photoshop. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in a little bit for our next tutorial.